Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another episode of Real Talk with Riz Khan. In this episode, we're on the move again, and this time we're on a flight experience from Medina to Manchester with Saudi Airlines. All praises to Allah for allowing me to call Medina my second home, and inshallah, I'll be back to the City of Light frequently throughout the year for work. If you're watching the channel for the first time, thanks for your time, and if you're a returning viewer, I appreciate you. My journey starts by taking my luggage where I spent the night at one of my favorite hotel suites in Medina. Shout out to Hassana Suites, a great place to stay and very helpful staff. Quite a spacious lounge for a small airport, featuring lots of soft drinks and hot drinks to keep you awake or hydrated, although at the time of my arrival, the food menu was quite minimal, which for me was just ideal. The waiter loaded my carbs, and I was ready to fuel my body for a long trip back to the UK via Jeddah. It was an early morning first leg departure, and I wanted to make sure I was awake throughout most of the flight to enjoy the surroundings and the Saudi business experience. Tipping my last coffee at the lounge, I jumped back onto the travelator to find my gate in good time for boarding. The first leg of my journey was on board a Saudi Airbus A320, an ideal fly-by-wire aircraft for this short 40-minute flight. The boarding experience was smooth and peaceful, with little noise, rowdiness or unruly queues. A quick walk over the jet bridge, I was eager to put my feet up and check out the features on board. And it didn't take me long to find some of the seat gadgets, a comfortable seat for all lengths and sizes. Although this cabin interior was quite outdated, there was a sense of originality to it. On board the Airbus 320, it was a 1-to-1 seat configuration for Saudi Airlines, offering ultimate privacy for solo travelers. It wasn't long before I was offered my first welcome on board drink, a mixed berry juice that just hit nicely all the way down, quenched the morning thirst. I must say the flight crew on board Saudi Airlines flight SV1421 on May 20th was some of the nicest, friendliest and politest crew members I've come across in my years of flying the world. Saudi Airlines, the cabin manager and crew on board the business class cabin needs some light. Thank you very much for your service.
Dear colleagues, all ground personnel have left the aircraft. We're closing doors to departure.
Once the cabin crew gave the official announcement that they were closing the doors, that's always a signal that we're ready for pushback and departure. Also, if you want to move seats, you can always listen out for this message on any airliner as your heads up to find your new seat before anybody else does. And at this point, the only seat I wanted was a jump seat on the flight deck. Maybe if I'd asked, it could have been possible. But Saudi Airlines, you'll have to call me back on board for a jump seat experience. And one of my favorite things about Saudi Airlines is the upcoming travels application. My heart felt much safer and securer after hearing this.
نسألك في سفرنا هذا البر والتقوى ومن العمل ما ترضى. اللهم هون علينا سفرنا هذا واطوي عنا بعده. اللهم أنت الصاحب في السفر والخليفة في الأهل. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من وعثاء السفر وكابة المنظر وسوء المنقلب في المال والأهل.
The safety video, an important bit of viewing. No matter how much flight experience you have, it's always worth reminding ourselves that we shouldn't take airplane journeys to our advantage. It was a short taxi ride to the runway and the jet engines started spooling up to takeoff mode. Journeys of all kind present us with opportunities to increase our supplications to Almighty God. I took many moments to offer my du'as and supplications that came to mind throughout this flight and the next. After departure, I was on the lookout for the Prophet's Mosque, and I easily located it, the white, most light seen from above. As I flew above and past the tranquil city, there was immense sadness, but at the same time excitement for my next return to Medina. Life in any city is different when you live and work there, as opposed to visiting as a holidaymaker or pilgrim. Although my heart will always be in Medina, there's always also a sense of excitement when heading back home. It wasn't long until I started fiddling with the buttons on the business deck. As a vertically stable human being, I was quite impressed with the legroom offered. There was one problem though, this leg was too short for a nap, so I took full measure and enjoyment of the onboard experience. It wasn't long before we were cutting through the clouds on approach into Jeddah. I enjoy landing as more than takeoff, so I watched every phase of the flight until landing. Most airliners operate an instrument landing system into landing, also known as ILS, as they approach the airport, allowing pilots to prepare the aircraft for its final approach and manual flights minutes before touchdown. It was a smooth and bump-free approach into Jeddah, watching the morning sunrise as our rubber met the tarmac. I must say this was one of the smoothest, silkiest landings I've experienced. Skill matched with experience and training is a great recipe for a smooth flight and operations. About a 10-minute taxi to our gate, where I was going to deboard and head to the next aircraft. After a very short layover, my next trip was on board a Boeing 787 Dreamliner for the final leg of the journey from Jeddah into Manchester. I arrived in Jeddah just after sunrise, and the airport experience was just as I like it, peaceful and no chaos. An open, spacious and large airport. My time here was only short, so I waved salam and then ma salama to the duty free so I could do some plane spotting before I walked to my gate. with the mountains as a backdrop, this was a picture-perfect moment.
So we're heading on to the final leg from Jeddah to Manchester, about a 6.5 hour flight, but inshallah should be comfortable because it's Saudi Airlines.
My gate was at the other end of the airport, and so I had just enough time to jump on another travelator and head to my gate before boarding. Boarding was comfortable too. With a quick hop onto the plane from the jet bridge, I boarded and turned left. A modern aircraft, the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, with a much more refined business class cabin. The spacious interior complemented the Boeing's decreased cabin pressure in this aircraft, which doesn't leave you feeling as tired or jet-lagged. It wasn't long before the Dayton banana smoothie found its way to my table. I had about 6 hours on this leg, so I was looking forward to exploring this business class cabin, a feature on board the Dreamliner, and the window shades that can be darkened or brightened on demand. The amenity kit we received had all the bits needed on a long-haul flight, but I felt it was missing that Saudi culture. One pocket-sized oud or something more than the basics on the business experience, in my opinion, would add value to the passenger experience. We were given an eye mask, dental kit, flight socks and earplugs that all went safely into one of the many storage facilities on board. And before takeoff, I was offered another warm Arabic coffee, and I decided to kick back for the final leg of my journey. Seatbelt fastened, I was ready to go, and so was the plane. It wasn't long until we started our taxi, with takeoff being one of the critical phases of flight. I was most definitely upping my du'as and supplications for a safe journey for everyone on board. They say a road can take you to a different city or town, but a runway can take you to a whole different world. And how true is that? It was a routine departure out of Jeddah. We climbed and I enjoyed some of the day views before we were up in the clouds. The business class cabin on board the Dreamliner was a step up to the A320 configuration. Early after takeoff, I took a moment to soak it all in. Clear open skies, a free mind to think and clear up the clutter, and to experience views from up above we only get to see every so often. The view from up here reminds me of how minuscule we all are in reality, and that we almost always get tangled in worldly or daily issues, and that we place our priorities on the back seat. Priorities for me at the moment in my life, health and happiness, and I pray the same for you watching too. And then, flicking through the in-flight entertainment system, I was pleased with the range of movies and shows offered. Although I didn't watch any, it was good to see what I could have watched if I chose to pollute my mind on this clear sky journey. And then shortly after takeoff, the crew laid my table for breakfast. I chose the honey oats to start with, which was just perfect and on point, followed by 2 eggs sunny side up. There was also a bread basket of warm breads, my favourite being the croissants. Now, with this breakfast meal, there was a salmon and potato fritter. I want to point this out because for 6 days on my return to England, I knew this dish did not sit right with me. It was either not cooked properly or wasn't stored at the right temperature. All I know, Saudi Airlines, this was my last meal on board and it gave me food poisoning for 6 days straight. Anyhow, after breakfast, it was time to stretch comfortable and create my bed over 30,000 feet in the air. I managed to stretch out all of me without trouble and enjoyed a peaceful snooze for a short time before being offered the next meal. And then in preparation for landing, I freshened up with the toiletries that weren't provided in the amenity kit. I had to pinch myself because approaching the UK there were blue skies and only a few clouds. Seems like I brought the sunshine along with me from Saudi. Even after living abroad internationally in 3 countries, the excitement of heading home never loses its touch or value. Although I wasn't feeling too great at this time, I was looking forward to being back in familiar surroundings, in a place called home, the UK. I enjoyed the clear approach into Manchester and was sure to pop a chewing gum in to help with my blocked tears on descent. Final approach and landing into Manchester was smooth and timely. It was another decent landing from Saudi Airlines. So overall, I was impressed with the service from Medina to Jeddah and with the seamless check-in and boarding experiences. I was less impressed with the onboard amenities and consistency of flight service from Jeddah to Manchester. Doesn't it just goes to show and remind us of how people can make or break any organization or industry? Buildings are just bricks and mortar, planes are just metal tubes, but it's the people within that define its success. Welcome home, welcome to Manchester.